Well, Sitaram, a pleasant good morning to all of our viewers and listeners, and welcome to another edition, the final edition of the program Addiction and Recovery on 2023. Without further ado, let me introduce the host of the program Addiction and Recovery, Mr. Ramnes Dwarka. Sitaram ji, sir.
Sitaram Jason, it's indeed a privilege and a pleasure to have been with the program for the past years, almost since the inception of the station. And this being the final one for this year, and it's right in the middle of all its celebrations. And let me join with you in saying, Sitaram, and welcome to all our listeners, both in Trinidad and Tobago and worldwide. And to remind listeners, a lot of people, Jason, have been inquiring about the program. And I know a lot of them don't have this. This is right in the middle of the work day. So a lot of people are unable to listen to the whole program or follow it entirely because it's a 1-hour program. And as a result, the program I know it is repeated at 10 p.m. in the night at the same television station and radio station. And then it's also posted on Facebook and on my YouTube channel. So if you want to access it on the YouTube, my name is right under the screen there, Ramnes Dwarka. You just type the name in and you will come up, and there are a lot of programs there. In fact, lately, there's almost 15 or 20 programs there and they are all structured in a way to help any new person or anyone wishing to learn more about alcoholism, and even for students who are doing research and all of that. There are programs that speak to how do you diagnose the problem of alcoholism and drug addiction, and if so, where are the resources located in Trinidad and Tobago and worldwide, and of course, what are some of the challenges of remaining sober, and what are some of the solutions to the problem, and the various different, and let me at this juncture thank the team, yourself and Francis and all those people in the background who we don't see and hear, but who do all the research and present the valuable material that precedes the program. This morning, there were a lot of very good, solid information for anyone who want to know more about alcoholism and drug addiction. And of course, during the life of the program, anyone can call. This is an interactive program. Or if you can't get in on the program, you can reach me at 671-3040 after the program, and I would be willing to respond to any questions or concerns you may have. This morning, Jason, I want to speak a little bit about the fact that there is a solution. Only this morning I heard this elderly person speaking. I have a business in the front and people were there, and she's saying, it is just, she was talking about alcoholism and drug addiction, and she was saying, it is just your mind. And I was listening, I heard her, and she said, all you have to do is to make up your mind. And she represents a large portion of our public. The majority of people out there, that's how they think. That's how they relate to alcoholism and drug addiction. And they're partially correct, yes. It has to do with your mind. But once you've become addicted to substance abuse, to a drug, it's not only up to your mind. Yes, you have to make up your mind. You have to come to the point. Making up your mind brings you to the point that you realize you have a problem and you realize that you need to get help. That is how far your mind could take you. But having realized you have a problem and realizing that you need help is not sufficient to deliver on the abstinence, on sobriety, because now you need help. And I want to let our listening public out there realize that, and this is one of the reasons, Jason, that, more people in recovery seem to have a better understanding of substance abuse and alcoholism, because there's no substitute in the world for experience. We could read a lot, we could listen to this program, we could read the literature, and yes, we will be able to understand certain things. We'll develop insight. But insight is not a substitute for experience. You know, we have this short phrase that we use, been there, done that. I'm sure you have heard it, Jason, been there, done that. And so that the person who has lived through the experience, like I myself, I'm a person in recovery, and it has helped me to identify and to empathize. There's a difference between sympathizing and empathizing. Sympathizing is when we feel sorry, when we have compassion for, a person going through a problem. We're sympathizing with them. Like someone who has lost a relative and so on, we sympathize with them. But to empathize means to put yourself in that person's position. And there's a old North American Indian saying that you really cannot understand a person unless you have walked a moon in their shoes, meaning a month. And that saying has been, adapted to understand a whole lot of things. People say, you're not in my shoes, or you're not in that person's shoes, so you don't know how it feels. And while professionals in the field, doctors and lawyers and counselors like myself, are trained and are able to understand the problem, but if they have not lived it, they have a little bit of a challenge to empathize with the person sitting opposite them, to really fully grasp all the issues that impact substance abuse and recovery from substance abuse. And this is something I have been saying on this program, because the policymakers in our country, for instance, the politicians, the permanent secretaries, the leaders, the policymakers, a lot of times they miss out on that. If they do not have people who are working in the trenches, who have been there, done that, people who have been in recovery, then developing programs for substance abusers sometimes could miss the mark, And this is one of the reasons Alcoholics Anonymous has been so successful. Narcotics Anonymous also have been very successful in helping people to come off and stay off drugs. And I emphasize that because everyone is able to stop, yes. For some people, when the money finish, they stop. When the drink finish, they stop. When they get into sufficient trouble, they stop. When the wife or the employer threaten them, the wife say, well, look, I'll leave you, or leaves them, then they decide to stop to get them to come back. And the employer sometimes is probably the most effective, because he says, if you don't go and do something about your drinking or your drug use, you're going to lose your job. And for the alcoholic or the drug addict to lose their job is just not a painful experience in terms of loss of income. It is also they will now face with the inability to support their habit. So that's a double whammy. And this is why employers are in the most strategic position to, if they can pick up on these problems, because it is estimated, Jason, that at least 10% of the workforce are people who have a problem with alcoholism or drugs, but they go undetected. And, in the workplace, sometimes we develop relationship as our colleague, our partner, and we clock the card for them and we cover for them and we, sign in for them and we make excuses for them. And not only the colleagues do that, the relatives as well will call in and say, well, his grandmother died and he has to go to the funeral, or he had Chinese food to eat. I don't know why they blame Chinese food. And he's feeling sick today, he's having diarrhea. You understand? And we cover for them. And as a result, without realizing it, even professionals like myself who do not understand the problem, we try to patch up the client before us, who is referred to us, get them back, get them into treatment, get the wife into a conciliation, try to reach out and get the job back or the housing, organize, to patch up things for them, only to realize that we have all become enablers. because the truth is, and this will sound cruel, but this is the only disease, Jason. Alcoholism and drug addiction is recognized by the World Health Authority, the Pan American Health Association, by the British Medical Association, and even in Trinidad and Tobago by our health services as a disease. It's now listed in the what is called the Diagnostic Statistical Manual as a disease. So it's a disease. However, it's a disease that not only affects the patient, it affects everyone around them. In fact, sometimes it affects the people around them more than it is affecting the person themselves. Because let's suppose this is the husband, he every time he see anything that looks like a problem, he goes and drink and he escapes dealing with it. But the wife and the children, they can't escape. They have to take the brunt of it. They become the victim of it. You understand? And but as a sickness, this is the only sickness in the world where love and care and all of that we give to other people who are sick could literally kill the patient. This is a sickness where kindness could literally kill the patient, because in trying to be kind to them, we can become enablers. And there's a fine line that separates social drinking from alcoholism, but there's also a fine line that separates responsible care and concern from enabling. And so I've always said in this program very slowly that no addict or alcoholic is going to stop using alcohol or drugs, Jason, unless to continue to use becomes more painful than stopping. And if we keep making the broth for them, cleaning the vomit from the floor and calling the job and making excuses, we are not allowing them to suffer the consequences. And there's a whole lot of us, Jason, including myself, I could identify with that, who it is not that I did not know alcohol is a bad thing to drink, or cigarette was bad to smoke. I knew that from a little child. That's why we were prohibited. But it didn't stop me. I didn't stop all those other people. It's not for lack of knowledge. They know, but they choose to use it at first as a matter of adventure. I could remember, hiding and drinking a beer with my friends. And when we go by the river, somebody had a cigarette and we light it up and pass it around. And of course, I am not less than them. And for inclusion in that group, I would smoke as well. And even though the first time, second time, I would cough, like I want to cough my head off, but I realized it would have happened to my other friends too. And so I got habituated. But at first it was recreational. And yes, at that time, maybe my mind and my education and all the sanctions are existing around me could have helped me to stop. But once dependence sets in, once you cross that invisible borderline from social drinking to compulsive drinking, when you become physically dependent, that is to say, you have to drink now or use the drugs in order to prevent yourself from becoming depressed. You are using the drugs like you are using a medicine. You're self-medicating to help you to cope with anxiety, to deal with the shakes next morning, to steady your hands so you can sign the register or sign your whatever you have to do. You understand? And then you have to use it in order to sleep. Otherwise, you can't sleep. When you get up in the night, you can't go back to sleep. And the next day you'll be a mess. So that is when dependence steps in. And there is where the mind starts failing. Because although you have insight and this is not good for you, you could see that it is leading you to a place that you really don't want to go. You probably have insight from looking at some of your friends who are drinkers and see what happened with them. Like, for instance, today I can look back and actually I don't have a single friend left who I used to drink with. And some of them much younger than I am, but they have already passed on. So these things would remind one that, hey, You just have to look around and pay attention, and you'll see how many of your friends or people you know are getting in trouble with the law, for drunken driving, whose homes are breaking up because of alcohol, losing their job, getting sick, spending out their money, now looking unkempt, you know, losing their family and home, living on the streets, getting put out of their house. So many things, dropping out of school, at university because of drinking and drug use. So a lot of people are familiar, but we have a tendency to block it out and, project and deny, to say, well, look, like the lady who was shot. A lot of people are blaming the lady for looking out the window, for crying out loud. Everybody will, you know, if you hear something, your natural reaction is to pay attention to see what's happening. And they're not blaming the people, the idiots who are shooting, you understand, around the place. And so the same applies in, we don't blame the society and the shopkeepers and people who develop the advertisements and all of that for promoting the alcohol and that. We hold the alcoholic and the drug addict to ransom, responsible, because yes, nobody holds them down and put the drink in their mouth and force them to drink it. But this is why the average Joe outside, they do not understand the nature of this problem. When you have gotten to that position where you have become dependent, where you can't eat, you can't sleep, you feel depressed, you feel suicidal, you feel anxious, you become non-functional. All of those are painful experiences. And for people who don't know that, those are what is called withdrawal symptoms. And anyone who has become dependent on alcohol and drugs, when they stop or they try to stop, they go into withdrawal. And is not only so for alcohol and drugs. The same thing is true for sleeping pills and tranquilizers and anti-anxiolytics and all of those things that you get from the psychiatrist as well. If you try to get off those, you stop using it, you're going to withdrawal as well. And the withdrawal from those is even worse. So that you find yourself between a rock and a hard place. For instance, you were addicted to alcohol, you were getting into trouble, you were having trouble to sleep and becoming depressed. You go to your doctor, now he puts you on these medication, and now you're on a merry-go-round. You can't, and it's spinning so fast, you can't get off. So I want to let all of those people know that there is a solution. That is my topic for this morning, to let you know, no matter how bad things have gone with you, there is a solution. Because I know people who have gone worse than that. Yes, who were suicidal, who were depressed, who were anxious, who had become dependent on drugs and prescription pills, and who are today free from all of those things. But you have to want to do it. But even if you don't want to do it, there is still help for you. Because that is the nature of this disease, Jason, that we are talking about. The nature of this disease is denial. The person who suffers with the disease, there's a defense mechanism called denial that they use to pretend it doesn't exist, so that they could continue to live and use the drugs without feeling abnormally guilty and ashamed and all of that. So this is that is where the person needs help from professionals like myself, who can help them to develop what is called insight. Insight is helping to make the connection between their drug use and the state they have found themselves in, so that they coming out of denial. And this is one, breaking out of denial is really most effectively done in a group setting. Yes, professionals like myself could help the person develop insight by one-on-one counseling and all of that, and possibly take them out of denial, But I have found that in small groups, small groups are much more effective. And this again is why, again, AA is very effective, because it is not one person telling you that, look, you need to stop drinking and why you need to stop drinking. Like if you, for instance, if you went to see a counselor, they will take a history and they will see, well, you know, what is the presenting problem and what is the underlying problem. And they will come to realize, you know, you might be saying, look, if you got a better job with more pay money, you will be able to manage better. But the counselor, because of their training and experience, will realize if you stop drinking, you will not need to get a new job. You'll be able to use the money you have and even save from it. So the drinking might be the underlying, the root problem, and the presenting problem is the lack of income as the client is seeing it. And but that is really a challenging thing if you have not worked in the field of substance abuse and drug addiction. For the average counselor, the generic counselor, you understand? However, when you sit in a group with people, and I did this, I used to be doing, I was a group work facilitator at Substance Abuse Prevention and Treatment Center. And when you sit in a group with 5, 6 people or 7 people, and they are talking about how they came to use drugs, right? You know, how just out of curiosity and recreationally, as I described, when I go with my friends down by the river and, you know, we're going to the beach and somebody pull out a brown bag with some strong rum in there, and you know, I had a drink. And it might start out of curiosity and then recreational. But at some point, for some people, not all, for some people, it transforms into compulsive use, where you start becoming dependent. So that for people like that, that is when they start rationalizing. Like, for instance, in my case, Jason, I would say, look, I don't play cricket, I don't play football, I don't gamble. So if I take a few drinks, what's wrong with that? I felt it was totally justified. You know, I didn't have any other sort of recreation. And I was working for my own money, and I had, I mean, sufficient disposable income to support the habit. And so I continued to live in denial out of necessity. But when you sit in a group with other people and they talk about, you don't feel threatened to start with. You are listening to them, and then it starts to dawn on you. It's called identification. You start to identify with them, but wait, that's exactly what I did. That is what I used to do. And that is what used to happen. And, you know, and if so many people are saying, because the process of addiction is the same, you know, it doesn't matter whether you're drinking rum in Caroni or you're drinking scotch in Westmoreland. Addiction is addiction, and the same thing will happen to you. It doesn't matter what brand you were drinking. You understand? Some of them will deliver the effect, like punch and rum and vodka will get you drunk much more faster than beers, but eventually you'll get drunk. So that sitting in the group, and I'm saying this because this is what happens in Alcoholics Anonymous as well. You know, you sit there and people listen, you listen to others, and they speak about their drinking, how they started, and what are some of the things started to happen with them, and the bad things that happened with them as well. You know, and what led them to make that decision to decide to stop. And you'll find that a lot of people, including me, I knew I had a problem with alcohol. I had decided to stop many years before I actually was able to stop. But no matter what I tried, you understand? Some people tried changing the chaser, some tried changing the blend, going from beer to wine to whatever. Some tried changing the friends, some even made geographical changes. You know, if I leave here and I go abroad, and I remember a joke about that, you know, this guy who couldn't stay sober in Trinidad, and his brother said, well, look, come up to Canada, you know, because up there, you know, you will be away from all them drinking friends. So his family paid his ticket and sent him up there, and told him that, look, if you go up there and you drink, they'll deport you. You can't be drinking in Canada, you know. You can't drive around with alcohol open in your car and all of that. I've been to Canada. I remember that. And no sooner he came out of the airport, he was drunk. And of course, the joke is that he got deported. They couldn't keep him in Canada. The relatives couldn't manage. And his family here was questioning him, but why? You knew you shouldn't be drinking. And he said, well, look, as soon as he came out of the airport, he saw a big billboard that said, drink Canada dry. And he was just following the instructions. There's a soft drink called Canada Dry, but he used it as an excuse. You understand? But that is typical alcoholic. They would look for any excuse. And this is one of the reasons around this time of year. And I want to again, the prelude that you all played, how to stay sober around this time, going to marathon meetings, picking up an exercise plan, being grateful, because sometimes we only see what is going wrong in our lives, and we forget all the things that are going right. And let me explain that. The human mind works like this. Jason, if I gave you 10 compliments and then I gave you one criticism, next time you see Mr. Dwarika, you know what will come up in your mind? Mr. Dwarika told me so and so and so. You'll forget the 10 compliments. That's how the human mind works. This is why when we look at the newspaper headline, is who gets shoot up on the highway. You won't see all the good things that were happening. Those go, if they ever get into the newspaper at all. The marathon meetings that trying to help people stay sober and all the temple services and the church activities, they don't get put in the papers. Those don't make news. Those don't grab attention. We always, if you have a wall painted white and there's one little black speck on it, we miss the whole wall and see the little speck. That's how the mind is. So that this is one of the reasons there's a tendency for us not to be grateful for all the things that we have. So, for instance, I could share this with our listening public. One of the first things I do on mornings, Jason, as I become aware that I'm alive again for another day, I thank God for the opportunity of seeing another day. While my eyes are still closed, while I'm still lying on the bed, I thank God for a roof over my head. I thank God for a bed to get up from, for hands and feet that working. If we don't pay attention, we forget all of these things. We'd only rush out thinking, oh gosh, this thing, I have to go and get this, or I have to go and do that, or the tap is spoiled, or the fridge, or the oven not working. We get stuck on these things, forgetting all the other good things. And that is when we become depressed. That is when we become anxious. In fact, I have developed my own slogan, and that is to say, whenever I am unhappy, Jason, it is because I am ungrateful. And this is why I start my day with a prayer of gratitude. And I would really like to recommend to every one of our brothers and sisters listening out there, start your day from a place of gratitude. As I say that, I feel very emotional, very humble. That can you imagine, Jason, if you were God and you had given to all your children all over the world, even more than Santa Claus, you had given them flowers and fruits and provisions and everything to sustain them, water. And look at the beauty. I mean, look at the flowers. None of us can paint a flower as beautiful as God has done it, right? But we are not paying attention. If you take a leaf and you look at it, really, if you observe it and notice how the veins run in it, you'll realize how great God is. Nature is so, there's so much that is happening around us, but we are not paying attention. All right, so you have given your children all these things, right, to sustain them. In fact, as Hindus, what do? Some of us, we get up in the morning and we offer a little bit of water to the sun god, Suryanarayan Swami. We offer a little bit of water on Shiva. And then for Tulsi, and we say our little mantra, and we take a little diya and we do arti, and we feel, well, okay, I have done my chores. I have put in my little installment. Now I have, you know, I have pleased God. Now he has to work for me for the rest of the day. I've put in my quota. But Jason, listen, before I got the water, who put it there? Before I got the flowers to offer it to him, where did I get it from? I didn't make it. You understand? And I take a little diya and do arti for God. But God, every day, even when I'm sleeping, sometimes when I forget, He gets up. He don't go to sleep. He takes a whole planet and does arti for me and you because He already offered the water to us and the flowers and all of that. So God is showing us. In fact, He's treating us better than we treat Him. We could break our promises to God, but He can't break His promises to us. So that if you are God, as I said, and you have given your children all these things, and all they're doing, Jason, is making nuclear weapons. They want to outdo each other with F-16s and coming up with more and more sophisticated weapons to do what? To kill one another. You know what? I'm a parent today. You know what's the worst thing can happen with a parent? The worst thing children can do is not to get along with each other. They're all your children, let's suppose, but they can't get along with each other. Unhappy. No matter how many gifts they all bring for you for Christmas, it will mean nothing if they can't get along with each other. You understand? So our listeners, we should be paying attention to these things. But suppose you have one child somewhere in Felicity who gets up every morning and said, God, thank you for the opportunity of seeing another day. Thank you for a bed to get up from, God. Thank you for a roof over my head. Because, we take these things for granted. Look what is happening with our brothers and sisters in Palestine. They have no roof over their head. They have no food to eat. They have no water to drink. You understand? And as a world, what the hell are we doing about it? With all our United Nations and all of that. But coming back to this, in spite of all of this, I woke up this morning. I have food to eat. I have a roof over my head. I get a chance to put on a jacket and tie and come and sit down here and do a program and share this information with our brothers and sisters. If I don't know, if I don't remember how grateful I should be, then God forbid. You understand? And I want to know everyone who is listening out there, the fact that you are hearing this program, you are heirs. You're blessed with hearing. If you are looking at the screen, you can see. And you have the opportunity to practice these things. So I am suggesting for the new year, a good strategy would be to start your day from a position of strength. Start your day with a prayer of gratitude. If you're a Hindu, get up and offer your jal. I have tried to stop drinking for years and years because of my ego. I wanted to prove that I could do this without anybody. And that is what keeps a lot of people into suffering, because they have the honesty to realize that they have a problem, but they don't have the humility to accept help for it or to go seek help. You understand? And it was not until I realized, boy, I needed help. And I went by my Mahadev stone on the 11th of December 1983. And I asked God to help me to stop drinking, because for all the times I would stop for a few days and I'll try with like they say, bite the bullet, cold turkey. I would try, and just I don't know when and why I would go back and drink. And to the extent where I had stopped trying to stop, because every time I try to stop and I go back, I would feel ashamed. I would feel guilty, But that day, I didn't even know God would help me. But it was suggested to me, look, finally ask God to help you now. Right? I got up and I prayed and I said, God, help me to stop drinking just for today. And you know what happened that day? As opposed to all the other times, since that day, the 11th of December 1983, till today, I've never had the urge to take a drink again. God removed the obsession, and only God could do that. And as I say this, not only Hindu God does work, Jason, Christian God does work. I have plenty friends who are Christians. I have good friends who are Muslims, and they all will swear to you that but for the grace of God, they are staying sober. And so that I don't have a problem. I know because God don't have stepchildren, Don't, because we don't have no step God either. You understand? It's one God we have. We call him by some people call their God, like we call our fathers. I used to call my father Pa. Some just call their father Daddy. Some say Papa. And whatever, love names we have for our fathers. So too with God. And yes, if you living in San Grande and heaven is in Port of Spain, Jason, you gotta pass on the eastern main road. But if I live in south, I gotta take the highway. It depends on where you located, where you were put in the world. That's the road you will have to use, what you are exposed to. But we are arguing. You want to convince me that I must come to San Grande, otherwise I will never get to Port of Spain. But let's suppose I live in Pinal. Why I had to go San Grande then to come to Port of Spain? I could just take the highway and come to Port of Spain. You understand? But I studied comparative religion, in my search for fulfillment and for purpose and all of that. And I have come to realize, it's just the little few things we split hairs about, but all religions, Jason, they all speak of a loving God. They all speak about telling the truth. They all speak about being charitable, about being humble, about being honest. I don't know of any religion that I know of, any popular religion that tells us otherwise. And if you be a good Hindu, you will be a good Christian. You will be a good Muslim as well. You understand? But we split hairs and we like to make argument. You understand? And put down each other. So I'm suggesting to all our listeners, brothers and sisters, I want to wish them, a prosperous new year, a happy new year, a new year in which you not only believe in God, the God of your understanding, but you come to know that God by developing a relationship with that God. There's no greater independence, Jason, I have found in my own life by becoming dependent on God. It's a paradox that you become independent by becoming dependent. But so that today, I don't have to worry if the rain will fall or the sun will shine or whatever. I don't even have to worry if today is my last day, because how long I stay here is really not up to anybody else. It's up to God and me. You understand? And we all have our own belief systems. But I want to wish everyone going forward that look, today is the only day in our life. It doesn't matter how rich you are, or if you are a street dweller, if you have nothing, no money or whatever status or position, we all only have today. So the only thing we can do as well is today. Yes, we could plan plans, but we could never plan the results. You understand? We can't go back and change anything that happened yesterday. You understand? But we can learn from it. And we can't do anything tomorrow today. We'll have to wait till tomorrow. So today is that day that you have to make the decisions. You have to put the foundation for tomorrow today. So if you want to live a drug-free life, my suggestion to young people is, if you don't want to go in a certain direction, Jason, don't even look that way. Because if you look that way, you might see something that might attract you, So a journey of 1,000 miles, let's begin with the first step. Don't take that first step. Don't take that first cigarette. Don't take that first drink if you don't want to become an alcoholic. Yes, while it is true that not everybody who drink will become alcoholic, but what is true is that everybody who became alcoholic started with the first drink. They took that first step. You understand? So I'm saying that even if you have been drinking and you think, listen, man, we are fortunate in Trinidad. We have so many good things we can drink. Think about it. I'm sure you could name a good few, Jason. There's Seymour's, there is passion fruit, there is sour sop, there is Bavardine. You name it, man. We have so many things that we could make. All kind of lime juice, lemon juice, orange juice, pineapple juice. So many good things to drink. Why are we taking alcohol is a poison, in sufficient quantities, it will kill you if you drink a certain amount in one go. But even in small quantities, you understand, it can still poison your system over time. Now, some people will argue, and yeah, there's one or two research that showed if you take a tablespoon of wine, it is good for your heart and your cholesterol and so on. But listen, I have no problem with anybody taking a tablespoon. If you could stop at a tablespoon and don't go on to a pot spoon, and like we say, a calchul and a tumbler eventually. You understand? So, bottom line is yes. Every human being, every one of us need to know ourselves. This program is not about drying up the world. It is not about preventing people from having a good time. But again, it's your choice. Who you are, where you are, how you are, and all of that is based on the choices that you have made over the years, Jason. And this program is about helping our listeners, educating them in this field of substance abuse so that they can make the right choice. Yeah, if you're drinking and you're having a good time, we have no problem with that. But if you have a history of alcoholism and drug addiction in your family, know that you're setting up yourself. And there are some people who are genetically predisposed. They were born alcoholics and they should stay away from it. But there are those people who can, by using it, become dependent over time. And you have to know when you have crossed that imaginary borderline from social into compulsive drinking. And let me just identify that. Once alcohol is causing problems in your life, once you have to try to stop drinking, you are an alcoholic. You don't have to try to stop drinking orange juice or grapefruit juice or any one of those. If you're having to try to stop drinking alcohol, something wrong, Jason. So I'm saying for those people who, if you think you have a problem, if you're not sure, of course you can call me and you can go on the program. There's 12 questions that we remember we did, Jason, that can help anyone. You can go to the 12 questions that I've posted on YouTube, the discussion on that. It will give you a clear idea and you can self-diagnose whether you are an alcoholic or not. And if you are, it also shows you where you could go get help and what are some of the challenges you can expect in staying sober and how you meet those challenges, how you get over those, and how you can live a happy life. And there's information there on meditation, on how to deal with insomnia, how to deal with the craving, how to deal with your relationships. And as we continue to talk, I want to finally say there is a solution. No matter how bad you have gone, in fact, the more bad you think you have gone, the more ready you are to stop drinking or stop using drugs. All you have to do is get in touch with me, call, and I'll point you in the direction. So I want to thank you, Jason, and Francis, and all the people who are behind the scenes who have been supporting this program throughout the year. I want to thank the Mahasabha board, Mr. Vijay Maharaj in particular. And posthumously, Mr. Lokesh Maharaj was a staunch supporter of this program, and Mr. Satnarayan Maharaj for allowing the use of this media house for this public service, free of charge. Thank you again, Jason.
Always a pleasure to have you, Mr. Dwarka. And like you said, if you have a problem or you think you have a problem, there's always a solution. All you have to do is take that first step today. Until next year, I am Jason Clue, saying Sitaram for now.